All right, guys, how is everybody doing? Welcome in here to Kurt Magoo Sports. And I'm going to talk about yesterday's contests in the NFL playoffs. So Mahomes in the first half, 21-3. Everybody's geeked up over the performance. It was an amazing first half of football by Patrick Mahomes. But then in the second half, it all came crashing down. And Cincinnati didn't have an elite defense, but they have a timely defense. You look at the way in which they've won these playoff games. You know, Burrow was really good against the Raiders. Then Joe Burrow, he threw an interception against Tennessee, and he threw an interception against Kansas City, but against the Raiders, he had no turnovers. The way that Joe Burrow plays, he plays a very organized style of football. He has a little bit of improvisation, but he's a pocket passer. He is pretty precise throwing the ball down the field. He has like a Peyton Manning level arm, probably even less of an arm than Peyton Manning. So when you look at Joe Burrow, the way that he has to win, he needs the team around him to be pretty damn good. He needs a running game, he feeds the tight ends, and his way of ball control offense allows the defense to be healthy. But I thought the Bengals were an overall better team than the Raiders, and it showed. And the Raiders were down the whole game. The Raiders had a chance to tie it and take it to overtime, but you knew Derek Carr would fizzle out eventually. That didn't surprise anybody. Then they went to Tennessee. They were a 3-point underdog there. And, people were saying they have a chance in this game, because Derrick Henry isn't healthy. They had Ryan Tannehill. They were up against Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback. He's prone to making mistakes. Julio Jones was injured for a majority of the year. Taylor Lewan was hurt. The Tennessee Titans have a very, very good defense. So the way the game played out, Tannehill gifted the Bengals, points early with an interception. Joe Burrow then, really played, a really good game, especially in the first half. First drive of the second half, again, they capitalize. They hit on some big plays. Joe Mixon, the running game gets going. They have a fantastic drive, but Joe Mixon was a part of it. Believe that Joe Burrow only threw for like 210 yards in the Titans game. He played a decent brand of football, but it wasn't like a dominating performance by Joe Burrow per se. In fact, the Titans and Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown hooked up on that big play. And, Cincinnati's defense was throttling down, but Cincinnati's defense was also leaky and making mistakes. I mean, A.J. Brown was killing them in that game. It came down to the last series. The Titans were going to kick a game-winning field goal, and you guys know what happened. Ryan Tannehill forced a ball into triple coverage, interception. The Bengals only needed to get a few yards. They hit a 10 to 15-yard completion, which was a really good throw, really clutch throw, and then their kicker made a 54-yard field goal to win. So Joe Burrow played okay, but again, the defense kind of set him up in position, all right? So and then let's look at the game against Kansas City. Joe Burrow in the second half, he converted the 2-point conversion. Joe Burrow made the throw to Jamar Chase, broke out of a tackle and made a throw to Jamar Chase. He hits T. Higgins in the middle of the fields on slants. I mean, Joe Burrow, he's playing very reminiscent to, a young Eli Manning, how Eli Manning played in 2007. He was a great supporting group, but it was a complete team effort. Like, the defense in the second half against Kansas City was sensational. There was no point other than the first half, and credit to Joe Burrow for staying poised. But the defense of Cincinnati held Kansas City to 21 points pretty much for the entire game. And in the second half, they shut out Kansas City and could have won the game on a fumble. So it really was the defense completely taking it over. Now, Joe Burrow still made timely, great throws to the running back. Didn't really turn it over except for a couple of poor throws. He had that one interception. But the defense was really phenomenal in the game. And it is very similar. Joe Burrow was a part of it. It's a 50-50 piece. You know, the defense played great, and Joe Burrow also played really, really well. So Joe Burrow is kind of like Tiger Woods because his presence, the way he dresses, the swagger that he presents, it causes people to choke around him. You know, your Rocco Mediates, your Rory Sabatinis, your Chris DeMarcos in golf. You look at guys like Tannehill completely choked in front of the pressure of Joe Burrow. Patrick Mahomes saw Joe Burrow, and he choked in the second half. Joe Burrow has magic to him. Everything around the team is magic. It's kind of like Tom Brady. Joe Burrow's magic makes this defense that is a middling defense play at an incredible level because they know if they get the ball back to Joe Burrow that Joe Burrow's going to win. They believe in this guy. He has the most confidence out of any young quarterback, he's probably among top 5 in terms of genuine confidence and then like actually backing it up on the field with victories. Baker Mayfield kind of had that confidence going into Kansas City last year. He wasn't able to get it done, and then this year was a total disaster. The way that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, the way that they bond, Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan, the coaching staff is a perfect kind of match. But this defense was unbelievable against the Kansas City Chiefs. First 2 games, Cincinnati was pretty even with the 2 teams that they played. It wasn't a surprise that they got to the AFC title game. It was nice that they beat Tennessee. It was a really good story, but if Kansas City would have whooped them, it would have been like, Joe Burrow's coming next year. He's not ready yet. But the fact that Cincinnati's defense in that second half was unbelievable, and Andy Reid got away from the running game, Andy Reid and Mahomes choked in that game because their offense was absolutely horrendous. He was terrible in the second half of that game. The fact that Mahomes won that championship against San Francisco, that means everything. Because Mahomes would be looked at as a choker. He'd be looked at in the same breath as Matt Ryan, as Lamar Jackson, as guys that have never won a championship before. So, Joe Burrow, listen, you stay in the fight. That's the lesson of Cincinnati, is staying in the fight. Win your division, scrape through the playoffs, make timely plays when they matter during the course of a game. You don't have to be this dominant, incredible team because Kansas City on paper is better. Honey Badger, Chris Jones. You look at the secondary, like better players. Offensively, Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, Mahomes, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, Andy Reid. Better players, more talented players. But the defensive scheme of Cincinnati, the way that they stuck to their plan, their defense won them the game. And then in overtime, they freaking got an interception. They intercepted Mahomes twice. So in the overtime, again, just like in Tennessee, they won by turnovers. They won with great defense. It's kind of exactly similar to how Eli Manning won a championship. You can argue that Joe Flacco during his Super Bowl run was more impactful than Joe Burrow. But all you remember about like Big Ben, about Eli's first Super Bowl, all you remember is them winning these games. And this game was similar to, I think, Big Ben beating Peyton Manning in that Indianapolis game in 2005, en route to Pittsburgh winning a championship. This is kind of similar. Now, the defense wasn't that good of Cincinnati, but Joe Burrow is very reminiscent to Big Ben. They both take a lot of shots in the pocket. They both are decent improvisers. They're not the fastest guys in the world. Big Ben is bigger in stature. They're both clutch as hell on third down. And they both make incredible plays on third down. Their arm strength, Big Ben had a bigger arm. Big Ben has more physical talent than Joe Burrow. Mentally, Joe Burrow can decipher at a level that is pretty damn impressive. Joe Burrow also has better weapons in his career. Joe Burrow, from an offensive standpoint, I believe is better offensive coaching than Big Ben had in his career. Big Ben had a better offensive line, a better structure and team around him, but Joe Burrow has better receivers in Jamar Chase and I would say T. Higgins. But Joe Burrow's also made T. Higgins, who's a second-round pick, has made T. Higgins good. No one heard of C.J. Uzomah until Joe Burrow showed up. So Joe Burrow has incredible attributes, and it's interesting because he is more of your limited pocket passer, but he's able to just win games. He's a winner. The QB stats, he's a winner. He makes throws that are necessary. If Jimmy Garoppolo was on Cincinnati, right, could Jimmy Garoppolo have beaten Oakland, the Raiders? Sure. Could Jimmy Garoppolo have beaten the Tennessee Titans? Would have been a little tough, but it's not completely impossible. If you needed to score 21 points with Jimmy G, could you have done it against the Kansas City defense? With the offensive line, it would have been hard. But Kirk Cousins maybe could have done it. But the thing is, like, the mental toughness of Burrow, the way that he leads the defense, the intangibles of Burrow, and the way that he connects his team, all that other corny stuff that people think is fake and that is not quantifiable data, that's what Joe Burrow honestly does to this team. And you can mock this video all you want for being crazy, but that's kind of what I believe happened. This is an average defensive team. I think they were 19th in yards allowed this season. They gave up the 7th most yards in the damn league this year. They lost to the Jets. They were not a consistent juggernaut. It's very similar to the first Giants team, except the first Giants team had Hall of Famers on the defensive side of the football. So it was a product of the AFC being crazy. It's a product of, again, a really good draw in the playoffs, not playing Buffalo and Kansas City. And Kansas City had a war with Buffalo, and they didn't have anything left in the tank for the second half. It's kind of what ended up happening here. You look at also the Rams versus the Niners. I don't think the Niners really had any bullets left to shoot. I mean, the Niners had to shoot their bullets against the Rams to even get into the postseason tournament. Down 17-0, they were impeccable in coming back. Then they went to Dallas and played a grueling physical game, won a squeaker late in the fourth quarter, but a very physical football game. They were pretty much playing playoff football all in the second half of the year. Against Tennessee, they needed to go balls to the wall on Thursday night there. They needed to beat the Rams twice. There was no let-off. The Rams let off in November. The Bengals did in December, kind of. So it's very, very interesting kind of how this whole thing, played out. The 49ers up 17-7. They couldn't run the freaking ball. They sucked running the football. Their offensive line was horrible. Deebo Samuel didn't get any tosses. Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of the first half, they didn't trust Jimmy G. If you're going to play quarterback, if you're going to have Jimmy G as your quarterback, you're going to need points. Stafford wasn't that good. He should have thrown those 2 interceptions. He was decent at hitting Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham. I guess you can argue he should have had that touchdown when that went off that guy's fingertips. So, and he could have had that Cooper Kupp reception on that same drive. Stafford has a very good arm. He's very similar, I believe, to Joe Flacco. Very, very similar. This run is really similar. I mean, Joe Flacco got really old, but Joe Flacco also didn't ever have a coordinator like Sean McVay. You look at Joe Flacco and Matt Stafford in Detroit is a decent quarterback, always in the top 8 or 9, always put up statistics, but never had those intangibles of Joe Burrow that I talked about. Like, never could inspire the defense, never was really lockstep with the head coach. Like, was he firing guys up along the sideline? Did he really enjoy to be there, or was he kind of coasting? And, Eli Manning at the end of the Giants a little bit was like a little bit coasting, but it's subjective, I guess, like the coasting argument. All you can know is quantifiable numbers, data, So Matt Stafford, to me, he didn't get it done in Detroit. He had one great year in Los Angeles where they're going to win a Super Bowl. If he backs it up and they continue to compete and contend, then the guy's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. If it's one good year, which I'm kind of expecting it to be, and then they're going to fall off and Stafford's going to keep throwing picks like he was in November. I mean, Matt Stafford, like he only beat Tyler Huntley by 1 point. Like this year, Matt Stafford had his real lows. They lost to Tennessee. They got beat by Arizona at home. He had some ugly, ugly games, all right? Did he play well in the playoffs? Sure he did. Against the Bucs, he did play well. They had a huge lead. It should have never even been close. Arizona was a gift. Any quarterback could have beaten Arizona. Arizona sucked. They were terrible, and the Rams' defense was unbelievable. Against the 49ers was the offense of Stafford, whatever. He produced like 20 points in the game. He threw for a ton of yards, produced 20 points. Really decent play, kind of like Joe Burrow. Again, I could even argue that Mahomes' postseason was better. Beating Josh Allen, I could argue Josh Allen's postseason was better than Matthew Stafford's. I would argue that. The 2 games that Josh Allen played are better than Stafford against the Bucs and better than Stafford against the Arizona Cardinals. It's just that Josh Allen does not have Von Miller, does not have Aaron Donald, does not have Eric Weddle, Jalen Ramsey, does not have the cornerbacks and the linebackers that the dang Rams do. So if Josh Allen was in LA, I guess we could talk about hypotheticals. The fact that the Rams didn't even play, the Green Bay Packers, the Rams, credit to them. They did go to Tampa and win. They do have a really good team. Like, Stafford's a really good quarterback. Again, you're going to have to start putting in a lot more quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame because they're going to throw for so many more yards. And unfortunately, like, the positions of kick returner and stuff, like, those positions are going to get left out of the Hall of Fame. Safeties, and there's going to be pretty much almost no linebackers anymore. Back in the past, there were tons of linebackers and linemen and D-linemen. Instead, it's becoming a quarterback's game, which is frustrating in itself. But the Detroit Lions fans, I like Dan Campbell and the Lions, and it's frustrating because they're really... with the stuff that they're enduring, they have the kind of loser mentality about themselves, like saying, oh, Stafford left us and now he achieved success. We were holding him back all along. Like, first of all, you had Calvin Johnson. He was an NFL starting quarterback. His situation was very similar to Joe Burrow. He's a good quarterback. He always has impressive arm strength. You can't take it away from Stafford. Does he have the heart, the will to win? This year he showed it, yes. At times in Detroit, like, he really showed it. There were some late comebacks that he showed it. But it wasn't consistent. And with Patricia, he kind of quit on Patricia, but nobody's going to really talk about, Matt Stafford, and they're going to blame Patricia. So I get it. Jim Schwartz, I get it. You'll just always talk about the head coach. Maybe it's similar to a Kurt Warner career where Kurt Warner, he had like 3 really good years with the Rams. They lost the Super Bowl. They beat Tennessee in a low-scoring Super Bowl. And then he resurrected his career in the desert, but he was terrible in the middle portion of his career. He only played like 7 years, and he only played like 4 good years, but he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. So there's going to be quarterbacks that are in the Hall of Fame that are okay. Even Eli Manning, like, I'm a Giants fan. Eli, to me, 2 Super Bowls, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Matthew Stafford's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I'd rather Eli and Matt Stafford go in than no Eli Manning because the runs that Eli had, and I guess you could say I'm biased as a Giants fan, but going in the Lambeau twice, beating the 49ers on the road like that, I think it was a lot harder than what Stafford and Burrow had to do. Stafford had a home game against the 49ers, a divisional opponent, has the more talented team in every single matchup. Eli did not. When he was playing Brett Favre or when he was playing Tony Romo and Terrell Owens and Marion Barber and the guys on defense of Dallas, the Giants were not the more talented team. When they were playing the 18-0 Patriots, no way. Stafford has had the more talented team in every matchup. So like everybody predicted, it's kind of Stafford. They were right on this. The whole go for the Super Bowl argument. Will the Rams ever suck for kind of, building the super team and ignoring the draft process, making a mockery of the NFL draft, making a mockery of building a team? Because the Rams, they say, screw it, we're not going to build, we're just going to buy. And they're doing a modernized version of what the Yankees are doing, of what basketball teams like the Warriors do. They got stars. Stars go together in L.A. They're in L.A. They're in that market already. And Les Snead and Sean McVay, listen, that's the thing. You don't have to like it. And do I like it? I kind of like the homegrown teams like Buffalo. At least Cincinnati's homegrown. But guess what? They're winning, and that's the part of the NFL, and they're doing it better than anybody else. So it's totally legal, and you got to give 100% credit to Les Snead and Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. As much as we might have biases, and I do a little bit because they're all like a free agent team. You know, Jalen Ramsey to me was a Jaguar that's now a Ram. Odell Beckham is a Giant and a Cleveland Brown that's now a Los Angeles Rams for like 5 months. Not even, like 2 months he's a Ram, and he's going to get a ring. It's not like these guys have had devastating losses. It's not like Lamar Jackson banging on the door of a championship, or Peyton Manning constantly with Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne getting to that championship game with Edgerrin James and Joseph Adai and not being able to win it in Indianapolis and having to bang your head against the wall until you cut through. You know, it's not like Joe Flacco in that sense. It's kind of like all these guys met up at that place and they won. But, you know, and then you can argue all rings are not, you know, the same quality. Like Michael Strahan's Super Bowl ring to me is the ultimate pinnacle. Like with the franchise for 17 years, all right? Hall of Famer, went through the Jim Fossil era, went through all the highs and lows of the Giants, the late 90s, you know, and then Kerry Collins in a really bad, you know, 2000s, and most of the time not making the playoffs at all, stuck through it, stayed loyal, won a championship, kind of like Dirk's championship. And I guess as a fan, like, that's freaking amazing to see that happen, you know? So, you know, for guys that are homegrown in the system of the Rams, I guess you could say Van Jefferson's that way, Tyler Higbee, Aaron Donald is certainly that way. And Aaron Donald is unbelievable. And his pump-up speech on the defense, you know, he really deserves this championship, 1,000,000%. Odell Beckham at the highest of highest levels, he played great, and he proved that he can, you know, really be on a championship team and win and not fracture the locker room. He proved that at least in a one-year sample size. Now, I guess I can really hate and say, he has to do this for consecutive years, and sure. Like, what will the motivation be? Can they consistently be great? That's what I can challenge the Rams and Stafford to do. Like, can you make it to the playoffs again next year? Like, then you're going, damn. Like, just like Kansas City, even though they lost, like Kansas City, like, damn, four AFC championships? It's so hard to win a Super Bowl and you're there, 4 AFC title games? That's freaking amazing. That's sustained success. That's having success. That's taking care of the regular season, taking care of the boring months, taking care of boring games. So this Rams team, to me, you know, it's kind of like a free agent team in a way. And then you have the Cincinnati team that's like, damn, you know, Joe Burrow is so young. Why the heck is he here? You know, Joe Burrow was asked, did this feel like a Super Bowl team? And he's like, if you told me that we were going to be in the Super Bowl when we started out in September, I would be shocked. And then Joe Burrow went on to say, but when we beat Baltimore, then I could see that it's very real and we could play with anybody. So I think Cincinnati's a bit more likable on the surface. You know, if Matt Stafford wins, he's in the Hall of Fame. For Detroit, you must be frustrated because it's like, why couldn't we win with this guy here? Even though Stafford in the city of Detroit, he is still a good guy. He's done nothing wrong off the field. It's just from a Lions, you know, looking at the Lions fans, it's like you got to eventually take pride in your own team. Even Giants fans with Odell Beckham, like, you messed up Odell Beckham. I mean, this Rams team was going to be really, really good anyway. And if you stay in one team and you don't go somewhere during free agency, the chances of you getting to a championship, I mean, you have to be fortunate. You have to have the coach. You have to stay healthy. All right, the Ravens weren't able to stay healthy. You know, the Texans and the Las Vegas Raiders had off-the-field issues that happen. There's off-the-field issues that happen in the National Football League. Even Kansas City dealt with some off-the-field problems during their run. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's the draw of the playoffs. It's how you win in the regular season. You know, it's making the big plays late, which I guess is making your own breaks, like the interception of Mahomes late in overtime, the Ryan Tannehill interception, you know, Evan McPherson, him banging through those field goals. The little details kind of matter. 4th and 2, 49ers, they don't go for it. They don't make that interception that Cincinnati makes. So it is kind of nice to see a team with like a pocket passer quarterback that doesn't really have the freak skills of Herbert or Josh Allen or Mahomes make a Super Bowl. Because pound for pound, who's the physically more imposing quarterback? Ironically, it's a 33-year-old Matthew Stafford over Joe Burrow. I mean, Joe Burrow can escape a little bit, sure. Joe Burrow has precision and processing skills, but Matthew Stafford has a bigger arm than Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow physically is a lot like Kirk Cousins with a little bit more mobility. That's just the way it is. But but Joe Burrow's leadership, intangibles, the way that mentally he sees the game is different. The swagger, the way he wears his clothes, that stuff that's almost really tough to teach. And a lot of that stuff is natural or I'm sorry. I kind of disagree. It's not really natural, but it's like definitely a focus that is uncommon. It's an uncommon will that Joe Burrow had at LSU. It's an uncommon confidence. You know, Joe Burrow at LSU, after his first year, Joe Burrow at LSU was a really average college quarterback, just above average. He would have been undrafted after 1 year of playing his junior season at LSU, would have been undrafted, maybe a 6th or 7th round backup quarterback, just like Danny Etling was at LSU. Then he went on, he got Joe Brady. He had the single most remarkable turnaround in the history of college football because Cam Newton was a 5-star. Joe Burrow's a 3-star from like a 3A high school. Like he was buried on the depth chart at Ohio State. It is ridiculous what ended up happening with Joe Burrow. So, and it is still ridiculous. So credit to Joe. I see the Rams winning this game. I do. I see the Rams 35, Stafford playing really well, winning the MVP, and I see the Bengals 13. 35-13, bloodbath of a game. Aaron Donald, the D-line, it's going to get ugly. It's going to be like Seattle-Denver. This thing will be over. I kind of hope I'm wrong because Joe Burrow, again, could shock the world. A close Rams win. I don't know if that would still be a little unfortunate. I'll take my swing on a bloodbath for the Rams. I think whoever won that Rams-Niners game with 2 weeks to prepare, they have the better team. And now that the Rams get to stay home, boy, oh boy, get the same routine, the same stadium, it isn't going to feel too big. They hang out in that locker room all the time. The halftime's not going to bother them. All righty, guys, 28 minutes of video. Thank you guys. If you guys watched, I really do appreciate it. And hope you guys enjoyed the NFL playoffs because I really did. It was a very compelling, close set of NFL games.